Oh, you sung it great too, nice and loud. You should be proud of yourselves. Thank you for singing it so well, because you really did a good job. Thank you for doing that. I really appreciate that. I mean, I'm really impressed with how you sang that. I'm so glad you helped us have a good experience and helped us out, and outstanding. You're an excellent choir, church. You see the difference between 1 and 2 there? Think about it for a second. Which side do you like more? Which one feels better, the appreciation or the compliment? And there's no right answer, just kind of sense in your heart, your feeling. So now with a show of hands, who prefers in general thanks or praise? Thanks? Praise? They're a little different, right? We can tease them out. We often jam them together, and it often makes sense to put them together, but there is a subtle difference. Some of us, we cannot stand a compliment. Just makes us just feel uncomfortable when someone says, thank you. But we appreciate being recognized. Others of us, we do something, it's not a big deal, it's not hard, but we sure could be proud of something. So there's thanks and there's praise. We're human, we're complicated, lots of feelings get weaved in and out. So we're going to complicate it. We just did a Bible study in this church on the Psalms. The Psalms tend to take 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 7 different emotions and just jam them together. And it's thoughts about God and life and loss and grief and joy, and they just sometimes stick it all together in ways that sometimes make us uncomfortable, and sometimes it feels so real. Or maybe if you saw the first Inside Out 1, I'm going to give you a spoiler here, but the point of that is that mature emotions are when we can hold 2 things together at one time. Inside Out 2 is all about puberty and how crazy that is. Also a good movie. But Inside Out 1, 2 emotions all at once. Maybe your therapist or your friend or a meme might be able to tell you. I hope someone has told you this. You're allowed to feel relieved and happy and excited and joyful and hopeful and worried and anxious and unsure all at the same time. Real emotions, mature emotions, honest emotions about God or anything, they can be really complicated because we're complicated. And that's okay. That's just fine. Now let's simplify things. Let's take complicated to simple. One way to enrich your emotional life and your spiritual life, one way to help your ability to be in touch with your deepest self is to zoom in on what feeling am I feeling? Is it appreciation? Is it thanks? Is it hope? Is it joy? Zoom in. So you might say, this feels like, this is just anger right now. It's anger. But there's also a little bit of I've lost control. I don't have control. That one's more of a frustration. But there's also, I should have control, and I have a healthy pride about the things I can do. A lot of things can be all there at once. Or this feels like thanks, which is totally unnecessary, and it's uncomfortable, and I don't even believe in myself enough to believe that I'm worthy of thanks, which is an invitation to fear and judgment, all those at once. Or this feels like praise, which, finally someone sees me. It's so easy for you to do that and for you to do that, but I worked hard at this, and it's so good to be appreciated and praised for that. So let's complicate things again. So many of our prayers, especially with children, we just simplify them to thanks. We just say thanks. And maybe that's good. Meister Eckhart said the best prayer you can give is just thank you. Sometimes when we don't know what else to say, we just say thank you. Thank you for health. Thank you for traveling mercies. Thank you for peace. Thank you. Can I get an amen for the thank yous in your life? It's a lot less common, at least in words. That's the key distinction. It's a lot less common in the religious traditions that tend to be in this church to say out loud, wow, God, you're amazing. It's a lot less common for us to pray with a wonder and an awe. Now, notice this difference. You gave me breath, thank you. That's common. You took away my breath. That's praise, and it's a little less common. Psalm 8 really focuses on the praise. God, your name is majestic. Might sound weird to us. Your name is majestic. What if I said, Darren, I see your character. Your dad would be proud. Okay, that's your name, your character is majestic. Ooh, that one feels right. Psalm 8 says, when I look to the heavens, which in this case is just the sky, it's where the birds fly, where the stars live, where God lives, all of it. When I look to the heavens, to the sky you made, there should be a breath in that psalm. When I go out camping and I see the moon and the stars that shine, where you put them, God, I can only wonder, how did you love us so much? Okay, let me put that in this way. At some point, everyone grows up. At some point, you get to an age and you say, Mom, I never realized how hard you worked. It's amazing. Your patience for me, your perseverance with us, I'm just in awe, right? That's praise. Same kind of thing as with God. Okay, so it's 1886, long time ago, somewhere in Sweden. This guy, Carl Boberg, was a pastor. He edited a religious magazine, just of good, fun articles. Eventually, he made it to Parliament, which I think there should be more pastors in Parliament. You might disagree. I think it's cool. But early in his life, before there, he's about 27 years old, and he gets caught in a thunderstorm. Like one of these quick rainstorms. It happens here in the summer sometimes. It doesn't rain for like 2 months, and then all of a sudden it just goes crazy. And you watch those, and you're just in awe of how much violence the clouds can have, and the lightning, and the thunder, and the wind. It just kicks up. So he hides out for a while, as you would do, and then just as soon as it started, the sun comes back out. He's looking up at the sky. I don't know if there was a rainbow. His journal doesn't say there was a rainbow. I don't know if the birds were making any noises. His journal doesn't say that. But maybe the rays just came through the clouds. I mean, we've all seen those pictures, and you think they're both kind of cheesy and inspiring when the rays just like fly through the clouds and through the trees, and it's almost like the angel is pointing right at you. I don't know what the sky looked like for him, but I know what that felt like, that wow, this is amazing. This is beautiful. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say with it. Now, you may have just stood there in awe. You may have like slapped your friend and said, look at that. You may have taken a picture or put a TikTok video on there, whatever you do to share your awe. But Pastor Carl, what he did is he wrote a poem. He was just inspired to write a poem. And because Psalm 8 is looking up at the heavens, and he's looking up at the heavens, he kind of paralleled some of his verses with Psalm 8. If the psalmist can look at the sky, I can do the same. We'll write that together. Now, it's just a poem. He shared it with his church. We do this sometimes. We try to do something creative. We share it to the church. Most of the time, it just stops right there. Some of the time, you're going to quote it back to me, and some of the time you get it right, and that just blows my mind when that happens. Most of the time, you heard what you need to hear, and that's between you and the Spirit. That's great. But once in a while, once in a blue moon, someone says something, and it starts to get legs of its own. So you fast forward a few years later, we have no idea how the thread worked this way, but somehow some musician or a choir director in the late 1880s in Sweden got a hold of this poem and thought, that's a pretty good poem, and then grabbed a melody, like a folk melody, a Swedish melody that people would know, people grew up with, kind of like when Grace played Deep and Wide, some of you started humming along. Just grabbed that melody, put it together, jammed it together. Kathy, you can imagine doing that. Imagine if someone in your choir wrote a poem and you went and grabbed like the Here I Am melody and just put them together, like that'd be totally okay. And then imagine though, what happened with Carl is he's just at a festival, just like a regular festival with, corn dogs and funnel cakes or whatever they ate in Sweden in 1891. And he walks over to a worship service and he hears his poem being sung by some other choir, somebody he didn't know. It's kind of cool. You might have worried about copyright, but Carl was just thinking, this is great. Something I put in the world is out there. Great. Now, it's popular. So a few years later, some German people decide to translate it. Loose translation. Great. And then some Russians translate from the German a little more loose. Okay, it's getting a little farther out there. In 1939, a Baptist pastor and his wife are in Ukraine, of all places, and they hear the Russian version of this song. It's a beautiful duet. They sing wonderful. The piano is great. He doesn't know a lick of Swedish. He doesn't know anything about Karl Boberg, but he likes the song. And right after that, the war started, so he gets kicked out of the Ukraine, goes back to Britain, and he brings the song. And, what do you do when you really love something? You try to change it. That's what he did. So Stuart and Mercy Hine, that's their name, they go back to England, and they make even more loose translation of an English version, and he decides to add another verse, and he sort of tweaks the tune a little bit, because in Britain, we all tie our little things up here, and we play a little bit like this, and they made it very British, which is still not the tune you heard today and sang today. So the song sits there. It's not even very popular in England. It just sits there for a while. And then another crazy coincidence, some British person is hanging out right in the beginning of when Billy Graham is getting popular. Not in America, though. They're in Toronto. And this person who has the song hands it off to Billy Graham's music director. And the music director, his name is Cliff Barrows. He really likes the song. They decide to play it in Toronto for the first time. People like it, so they added it to a few more of their crusades. And by 1957, it is sung at every single one of Billy Graham's worships. It's on the radio all the time. And it becomes the second most popular American hymn of all time. What's the first number one? Amazing Grace. Yeah, Amazing Grace. So this one catapults within 2 years to go from we've never heard it in this country to the second most popular song on the radio, for Christian radio. So what do we do? This is America, so what do? We're going to sue for copyright. And so Stuart Hine sues, and it's a big thing. And then we're going to fight about it. So the Methodists just happened to be making a new hymnal. Happens, churches do this every 20, 30 years. 1966, the Methodists are making a new hymnal, and some people wanted, it's a praise song, let's put it in there. And other people are like, it's a praise song, let's keep it out, right? The word praise song had really not been used until then. It didn't really mean the same thing until the 80s, and then we sing some of our praise songs. But the Methodists, they fought about it, and begrudgingly, they let it in. Charles, do you remember that? I mean, it was 1966, so you're a pretty young fella, but that's a Methodist pastor back there, and I told him we were going to pick on some Methodists. So yeah, they begrudgingly let it in 1966, and you can imagine the religious kind of traditionalists. They think, oh, we don't want this newfangled music with chords and guitars and everything. And then the new people are like, oh, we're singing along. 1977 comes along, and one of the last recordings that Elvis ever does is How Great Thou Art, and the Methodist traditionalists lose their minds. And that they're quoted as saying that he cheapened their hymnal, which, I don't know, maybe that we redeemed Elvis. I'm not sure which one goes. But eventually, as time goes on, it's been 47 years since then, since Elvis sang it, 47 years since then. And ultimately, this song has prevailed and continues to be the second most popular hymn in America. Now, the words and music are different than when they started in Sweden, but the feeling is still the same. God, how great you are. When I think about you, when I see your creation, it's awesome wonder. Awesome wonder. Awesome wonder. Sounds like a teenager could have wrote that, but it's deep in our souls. Awesome wonder. I can thank you another day. I can ask for help next week. But today, my soul sings just for who you are. So we sang the first verse. Now we're going to sing the second verse that came from Sweden to Germany to Russia to Ukraine to Britain to Canada to America to here. Over all that. We're going to sing the second verse just like you know it. You're going to recognize it. And then we're just going to keep on going with the same tune. We're going to sing the fourth verse that Stuart Hine wrote himself. But with the chorus part that we're so used to, that second part, we're actually going to go back and do a real translation of the original Swedish. A little complicated, but I believe in you. I think you're going to do it. So we'll just follow along. You'll see the music for verse 2, and then it'll be all lyrics for verse 4 plus whatever that is.